All right, get ready, because today we're taking a deep dive into Habakkuk.
Habakkuk.
Yeah, the book of Habakkuk.
Oh.
It's one that really tackles some of those big questions, justice, suffering, and faith.
Yeah.
So it should be a pretty wild ride.
I'm excited.
Now, Habakkuk himself, he's a prophet who's really wrestling with God, right?
Yeah.
He's full of this raw honesty.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that makes this book so fascinating is that he's not afraid to confront God.
Yeah.
With the injustice that he sees around him.
Like, can you imagine, having the audacity to argue with the creator of the universe?
Right. I mean, this is the God who spoke the world into being, and Habakkuk is like, excuse me, I have a bone to pick with you.
Yeah. And it's that honesty that I think makes this book so relatable,
Absolutely.
Even thousands of years later, it's like he's giving us permission to voice our own doubts and frustrations.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Habakkuk kicks things off with this really gut-wrenching complaint, right?
Yeah. He's surrounded by violence and corruption.
The good guys are losing, and he's basically saying, God, I don't get it. Where are you in all of this?
Yeah, he uses some really vivid language to describe the chaos.
Yeah.
Destruction and violence confront me. Conflict is present, and one must endure strife. This isn't just like abstract theological debate. This is a man wrestling with real pain.
Yeah, it's real life.
Yeah.
And, to make matters even worse, God's response isn't exactly what you'd expect.
Right. It's kind of a curveball.
Yeah.
God says, okay, I'm going to deal with this injustice.
Okay.
But I'm going to use the Babylonians to do it.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine? The Babylonians.
Notorious for their brutality.
They were like the ultimate bad guys of the ancient world.
That's like saying you're going to fight fire with gasoline.
Exactly.
So how does Habakkuk react to this unexpected solution?
Well, he's floored.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes from feeling ignored to being completely baffled.
Yeah.
But instead of just blindly accepting it, he pushes back. He's like, wait a minute, God. You're going to use these guys to bring about justice.
How does that even make sense?
Yeah, how does that work?
And he's got a point.
Yeah.
This brings up a huge question that's relevant even today.
Right.
How can a just God use seemingly unjust methods?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's a dilemma that has haunted theologians for centuries.
Absolutely.
But what's crucial here is that Habakkuk doesn't shy away from these tough questions.
Right.
He's engaging in this real dialogue with God.
Yeah.
It's a back and forth, full of raw emotion and intellectual wrestling.
It's something we can all learn from.
I think so, too.
So Habakkuk's gone from feeling ignored to getting an answer that's even more confusing.
Right.
He's basically in a full-blown debate with God.
A cosmic showdown.
So what happens next?
Well, he decides to wait for a response.
Okay.
To see how God will clarify this plight.
So he's waiting for divine clarification here.
Yeah, he positions himself like a watchman on a wall, like he's waiting for a signal.
Alert and eager for any sign from God.
Exactly.
Okay, now I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well,
God's dropped a bombshell, Habakkuk is fired back, and now he's waiting for a follow-up.
Right, and God delivers.
It does.
But not with a simple answer. It's more like a vision.
Okay.
A message packed with symbolism and meaning.
Like something to really ponder.
Yeah, God even tells him to write down the message, record it legibly.
On tablets.
Yeah, for posterity.
So this isn't just a casual conversation. It's a revelation meant to be remembered.
It is. God's not just speaking to Habakkuk here. He's speaking through him to future generations.
Okay, so what's the heart of this vision? What's the message that needs to be preserved?
It boils down to this. The righteous will live by his faith. But in this context, it's not just about believing, it's about trusting God's timing and his justice, even when things seem chaotic and unfair.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does the vision itself illustrate that?
Well, God paints a picture of the wicked, the Babylonians, as being like drunkards, insatiable in their greed, always craving more.
Well, yeah, they can never get enough.
Right. And they might seem unstoppable in their quest for power.
Yeah.
But the vision assures Habakkuk that their party is going to end.
What goes up must come down.
Right. Their pride and greed will ultimately be their downfall.
So it's like they're building their empire on a foundation of sand.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, it might look impressive for a while.
Yeah.
But eventually the tide will come in and wash it all away.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that this theme of pride and greed isn't limited to just the Babylonians.
Right.
It speaks to a broader human tendency, something we can all relate to.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we've all been tempted by that desire for more.
Absolutely.
More money, more power, more recognition.
Yeah, more stuff.
And Habakkuk's warning reminds us that building our lives on those things is ultimately a recipe for disaster.
It's true. True security and lasting joy
Yeah.
can't be found in those fleeting things. It comes from aligning our lives with God's will and trusting in his bigger plan.
So we've gone from a complaint to confusion
Yeah.
to a vision of hope
Yeah,
and a warning about the dangers of pride and greed.
right.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
Not at all. The book wraps up with Habakkuk's response
Okay.
to this incredible vision, and it's a powerful shift.
Oh.
We see him move from doubt and despair to a prayer filled with awe, confidence, and even joy.
Oh, wow. It's like the vision cracked open this whole new understanding for him.
Exactly. He's finally starting to see the bigger picture, to trust that even though he doesn't understand everything, God is ultimately in control.
I love that. So walk us through this final prayer. What's he saying to God now?
He starts by describing a future theophany.
A theophany.
Yeah, a visible manifestation of God's power and glory.
Okay, so he's not just passively waiting for God to act.
Right. He's anticipating a divine intervention.
And he doesn't hold back in the imagery, does he?
No, not one bit.
It's like epic.
Yeah, almost mythical.
Yeah, imagine God marching from the mountains.
The mountains of Timan and Paran.
Splendor covering the skies, glory filling the earth.
And there's lightning, pestilence, earthquakes.
Like a cosmic battle is about to unfold.
Exactly.
And remember all those doubts Habakkuk had earlier? They're gone.
They seem to have vanished.
He's moved to a place of trust and even joy, knowing that God is in control.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, even in the midst of chaos and destruction.
Yeah, this is a powerful image of faith and resilience.
It is.
But it also begs the question, how can we cultivate that kind of trust, especially when we're facing our own struggles?
Yeah. It's not easy, that's for sure.
No, it's not, but I think Habakkuk gives us a few clues.
Oh, like what?
Well, first, he models the importance of honest dialogue with God.
Okay.
He doesn't shy away from expressing his doubts and frustrations.
All right.
He lays it all out there, even challenging God's methods.
It's like he's saying, God, I trust you, but help me understand.
Precisely. And second, Habakkuk reminds us of the power of waiting.
Waiting.
And watching. Remember how he positioned himself on that rooftop like a watchman?
Right.
He doesn't expect an instant answer.
Yeah, he waits, he watches, he listens.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that old saying, good things come to those who wait.
Right. But it's not just about passively waiting. It's about using that time intentionally to deepen our trust in God, to surrender our own timelines and agendas, and to truly listen for his voice.
So even though waiting can be frustrating,
Oh, absolutely.
even agonizing at times, there's a purpose to it.
Yes.
It's not just empty time, it's an opportunity.
Yes, for growth, for reflection.
For deepening our relationship with God.
Exactly. And that's a message that's so relevant
Yeah.
in our fast-paced, instant gratification culture.
Right, we want everything right now.
Right. We've lost the art of waiting patiently.
Of trusting that God's timing is perfect. So how do we learn to embrace the season of waiting?
That's a good question.
Even when it feels like nothing is happening.
Well, I think the first step is acknowledging the reality of waiting.
Okay.
It's a part of life. We're going to have to wait for answers.
For healing, for justice.
For the fulfillment of God's promises.
Yeah, and instead of resisting it.
We can choose to see those times
Yes.
as opportunities.
Opportunities for what?
Opportunities to deepen our trust in God, to cultivate patience, to surrender our own control, and to listen for God's voice in the stillness.
It's in those quiet moments that God often speaks the most clearly.
I think so.
So instead of viewing waiting as a passive activity, we can approach it as an active posture of faith.
I like that.
Yeah, a time of seeking and surrender.
It's a much more empowering perspective.
It is, and I think Habakkuk embodies this beautifully.
He does.
He didn't just sit on that rooftop and complain.
Right.
He used that time to engage with God
To wrestle with his doubt.
and ultimately arrive at a place of deeper trust.
Yeah. What a great model for all of us.
So we've explored some of the key themes of Habakkuk: suffering, pride, greed, lament, waiting.
And the need for honest dialogue with God.
And we've seen how his journey can really inspire us to navigate our own challenges.
To face them with courage, honesty, and trust in God.
You know, we've really unpacked a lot But I have a feeling there's even more to discover in this book.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, there's so much in this book.
Yeah.
You know, we could probably spend hours just dissecting it.
Absolutely.
But for this last part,
Yeah.
I want to focus on the imagery that Habakkuk uses.
Oh, the imagery.
Because he's not just a prophet or a philosopher.
Right.
He's a poet.
I love that.
And his use of language just brings his message to life.
It really does. Like, when God describes the judgment coming upon the Babylonians,
Oh, yeah.
it's not just a dry historical account.
No, it's like visceral, all of imagery.
Yeah, what about those proverbs he uses?
The Proverbs.
Yeah, to describe them.
Like, the one who accumulates what does not belong to him is as good as dead.
Ooh, that's powerful.
It's like he's pronouncing a curse on their ill-gotten wealth.
It's like a foreshadowing of their downfall.
Yeah, and then there's that image of the Babylonian Empire as this bird building its nest high in the mountains,
Oh, I love that image.
trying to escape disaster. But God's judgment will reach them no matter how high they try to fly.
It's a classic tale of hubris.
It is, leading to a downfall. But speaking of powerful imagery, we can't forget that vision
Oh, yeah.
of God in chapter 3
To divine warrior.
as a divine warrior.
Oh, he's incredible.
It's like a theophany on steroids.
One of the most awe-inspiring depictions of God
It really is.
in the entire Bible.
We talked about it a bit earlier, but let's break it down. What are some of the key elements?
Well, it starts with God coming from the south,
Okay.
from the mountains of Teman and Paran.
And that's significant because
Well, it echoes the imagery of God appearing at Mount Sinai.
when he gave the law to Moses,
Exactly. So Habakkuk is drawing this parallel between God's past acts of deliverance and his future intervention.
so it's like a reminder that God is the same.
Yesterday, today, and forever.
Yeah, he's always been a God of justice who fights for his people.
Absolutely.
And then you get those descriptions of God's power and majesty.
Oh, yeah.
His splendor covers the skies. His glory fills the earth.
There's lightning, this two-pronged lightning bolt flashing from his hand.
Oh, wow.
It's like a cosmic storm,
And God is at the center of it.
right in the eye of the storm.
And it's not just a random display of power, though.
No, it's intentional.
God is marching out to deliver his people.
To strike down the wicked and establish his justice.
And it's described in some pretty intense language.
It is, plague and pestilence march before him, mountains shake.
The great deep cries out.
It's a reminder that God's judgment is a force to be reckoned with.
But amidst all this chaos and destruction, there's also a sense of hope.
Yes, of deliverance.
God isn't just coming to unleash his wrath,
No, he's coming to rescue.
to vindicate the righteous and establish peace and justice.
That's the ultimate goal.
And there's that one image that always gets me.
Which one?
The description of God trampling on the sea
Oh, with his horses.
with his horses. What do you make of that?
Well, the sea is often a symbol of chaos and disorder. So this image represents God subduing those forces, bringing order out of the chaos.
So even the most powerful forces in the universe are under his control.
Ultimately, yes.
So when we're facing those insurmountable challenges, Habakkuk is pointing us back to God,
To the one who holds all things together.
who can calm even the stormiest seas. And that brings us back to the question, what does all of this mean for you, our listener?
Yeah, because Habakkuk's journey isn't just an ancient story.
Right.
It's an invitation to engage in our own wrestling match with faith.
Where do you see echoes of his struggles in the world today?
Where do you see injustice?
The cries of the oppressed going unheard.
And how might Habakkuk's response inspire you to face those challenges?
To live by faith, even when the world seems to be falling apart.
We may not have all the answers,
Just like Habakkuk.
but we do have that promise. The righteous will live by his faith.
And that faith rooted in a God who is both powerful and just can sustain us
Through the darkest nights.
and empower us to navigate the most difficult paths.
Habakkuk's story is a reminder that faith isn't about passively accepting things,
No, it's about engaging with the world
pursuing justice,
and trusting in God.
who sees, hears, and acts.
So go back and reread Habakkuk,
Yeah.
savor the poetry, and then step out into the world with courage and hope,
Armed with the knowledge that the God of Habakkuk is still working in the world.
making all things new. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Habakkuk.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll be back soon with another fascinating exploration of a text that has something to teach us
To challenge us.
and to inspire us on our own journeys of faith.
Until then.
Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep believing